The second invasion of the Sarate continues where it left off, with Komamura covering his face once again while fighting against Bambietta, and this leads to a few chapters where Captain Komamura is really given the spotlight and makes quite the sacrifice. So let's get into it. I've always liked Komamura well enough, but he's never been in my top echelon of absolute favorite Bleach characters, you know, even after that incredible battle back in the Ironccar arc, which remains one of my favorite fights in Bleach. He's always been this very stoic and mysterious character, with the biggest mysteries stemming from his very unique appearance. He initially had that air about him because of his mask, but when we did eventually see his face, it only brought more questions. Most Soul Reapers don't look like canines after all. Komamura stood out, and for mostly unexplained reasons, he felt the need to hide his face even from his own comrades. We didn't know why he looked this way, but it was clearly a crucial factor to who he was, and in particular, a part of his tragic friendship with Tozen. I loved that backstory and all of the complicated emotions it brought to the eventual fight between them, and you can hear my full thoughts on that battle in that video, which was like almost a year ago now, which is crazy to think about. But that conflict and everything that came out of it surprisingly becomes pretty relevant again to the themes that Kubo brings up here, but more on that a little later. So we've got Komamura showing up to this battle with armor that sort of resembles how he looked in early Bleach, with the helmet clearly calling back to his old basket. This was such an interesting choice because it initially makes you unconsciously think that he may have regressed in some way, hidden his true face again, but also raises the question of what's under there now, because we know him well enough at this point to know that he's not ashamed of his appearance anymore, at least not to the point where he feels he has to hide. It's just this brief, fun little question hanging over his rematch with Bambietta at first, like, what's going on with Komamura? Is he hiding again? Is there something else? I liked that a lot. It just brought a little bit of intrigue to his reappearance here after we didn't see what happened during his meeting with the Elder, which last we saw wasn't going very well. And now he's here, you know, protecting people from Bambietta. Speaking of Bambietta, she is kind of exactly what I figured she was after we saw what she likes to do in her downtime to people. She's sadistic, vicious, and likes to make things explode. There doesn't seem to be much more to her than that. Kubo made it really easy to root against her pretty immediately when she was so rude to Komamura about his appearance before during their first fight, and that continues here. We do get a better look at her power, as her letter E turns out to stand for the explode. I had it as like the enticement or something was my guess because of her like seducing guys before killing them, but once we saw her starting to blow a lot of stuff up during the battle, I was like, oh, it's probably like the explosion or something, and sure enough, it is. Similar to my childhood favorite X-Man Gambit, Bambietta fills something with her power to make the thing explode. It's not so much she's throwing something explosive as what she's throwing is going to make something explode. Gambit needed to touch the thing to fill it with power, but she just needs to shoot her ability into something and it'll blow up. It's extremely dangerous and was the perfect way to beat Shinji, since all of his perception altering stuff doesn't really make a difference when things explode in every direction. Like, it doesn't matter what up and down are when she just blows up everything. Do I wish that Shinji maybe put up more of a fight? Of course, but this really was meant to be Komamura's time to shine, so Shinji had to go down, and I'm glad he went down against a power that kind of makes sense that it would kind of render his moot. I also liked Momo trying to jump in too to save Shinji, and honestly I just hope she's doing well, you know? She at least has a better captain, but yeah, it was nice to see Momo on the battlefield, not still crippled by her trauma, and avoiding teammates with sharp objects. We talked a few videos ago about Komamura going back to his clan and speaking with the Elder about their secret forbidden power, but it was all left in a very uncertain place. Back then, we didn't learn what exactly the clan's history was or what its secrets were, but now we do, and it was pretty fascinating stuff. It turns out Komamura's clan were souls that committed horrible sins during their lifetimes, so were then condemned to being wolfmen as punishment in the afterlife. So that's why they're viewed with shame and why Komamura kept his face hidden for so long, hiding the truth of his bloodline while the rest of his clan hid away in isolation, far away from the rest of the Soul Society. I'd obviously always wondered why he had the head of a wolf and fur, and most recently why his clan elder was also a giant fluffy wolf, and it turns out that was because of this punishment, and I really like this explanation. It adds an interesting thread to the Soul Society, that there's a subsection of people that are not fully integrated with the rest, where a hopeful soul like Komamura wants to be this ambassador, to build a bridge to allow his clan to come out of hiding, to try to mingle and coexist and integrate with the rest of the Soul Society, to try to make up for the sins that got them all punished. It just says a lot about his character once you know all of this, that he's really trying to be this example that they don't need to be hiding, and he's really trying to push for coexistence between his clan and everyone else. And once again, it's a very even-keeled and maybe even naive perspective that Komamura has, but one that he still strives for, and I think that says a lot about his character. And we see that when he went back to go try to get new power to make up for losing his Bankai, that he had to earn that clan secret from the Elder. And in a surprising moment when his new helmet comes off, we saw that he did achieve this new ability. I personally thought that whatever secret power he was trying to get was going to make him even more beast-like, feral even, but at least physically, this clan secret kind of does the opposite. It's called the humanification technique, and it's their secret ritual that allows the members of this Wolfman clan to return to human guises temporarily if they offer their heart to the Elder. Yeah, straight up rips his own heart out. So after giving that up, making that sacrifice, Komamura loses his wolf-like appearance that he's had the whole series, and instead takes on a much more human look. It was a nice subversion of what I was expecting, and just interesting to see, honestly. Kubo found a good balance with the design, where it still feels like Komamura, you know, even when he looks so different in some ways, it's still very much him. It's not hyperbole. To make this happen, Komamura has removed his own heart, ripped it out of his body, literally. Full-blown Davy Jones, Will Turner kind of thing. So removing his heart makes it so he's not exactly alive anymore. Like, with his heart gone, his body is really nothing more than a shell, as he describes, that's containing his power, but he can't be killed. He's like dead, but alive, you know? Even his Bankai sheds its armor and becomes something familiar yet different too, and I love how threatening this design is, especially compared to the old one, and how it fittingly reflects the changes that Komamura is undergoing. We know that his Bankai is like particularly connected to him physically, and like we've seen that before, and obviously his Bankai kind of follows his movements and becomes like an avatar of his will. And this really just continues that in these changes that he's going through. Like with Komamura, all of the armor and the coverings are stripped away to show something dangerous, to show something that's unkillable, that's super powerful. Once the armor is stripped away from both of them, the stoicism and the defensive mindedness are gone, and it seems to be working. And it helps that Komamura is essentially invulnerable now. At this point, Bambietta doesn't stand a chance. It gets pretty much wrecked right away. It's this insane power-up that he had to make this crazy sacrifice to achieve, and she just gets pretty much destroyed by Komamura's new form and his new Bankai, because he can't be killed like this, which is an insane transformation, and he makes it clear how dangerous he is when he deals with Bambi without being able to suffer any real damage to himself anymore. Like, she can blow him to pieces and it doesn't matter. Honestly, he probably could have dealt with a lot of the other Sternritter if he just went around the rest of the battlefield right now, helping people out like he did with Shinji and Momo, using this transformation to defend his comrades, but instead, Komamura beelines it straight for Yuabaha, and he marches in that direction, not to cut off the head of the snake for the sake of the battle, but instead because he wants nothing more than to kill Yuabaha for what he did to Head Captain Yamamoto. Because we learn that Yamamoto was the one that really took Komamura in after he left his clan and became a Soul Reaper, and now that scene with the captains after Yamamoto's death hits even harder, because now we fully understand why Komamura was so upset, the depths of his grief, because it seems like Yamamoto was responsible for giving him a place and a new home, and while it took other factors to get him to eventually remove his mask, the late head captain was a big part in giving him this opportunity among the squads, and acceptance despite the apparent prejudice toward Komamura's clan. Honestly, it feels like Yamamoto was more of a father or a mentor type figure than Komamura's elder ever was to him. Komamura seeks this new power. He rips his own heart out for the sake of getting payback. He is fueled by revenge, desperate to avenge head captain Yamamoto, and that's where he went wrong. The moment he turns his attention fully to Yamabaha, full on tunnel vision, only thinking about that, and is prepared to march right up to him and kill him, that's the moment that Komamura's new power boost starts to leave him. Because he's giving into revenge and he's losing the humanity that he just briefly gained. It's like a gamble where you take your heart out, there's this curse. If your heart gets filled with vengeance, you start to reflect that and become fully transformed into a beast, and it's crazy. This is happening to him, and he wasn't even fully apparently told about this, but he starts to realize as he's transforming, and it's just this crazy revelation, like, oh my god, this is the price he has to pay for this power that he's gotten, and now it's coming back to bite him. A brilliant choice that Kubo made with this, and part of why I love it so much, is how it ties back to Tozen, who was such a big part of Komamura's arc and remains so even now, especially now. As we all no doubt remember, Kaname Tozen was a character whose need for vengeance consumed him, and he tried to justify it, but it turned him into a monster. He was a prime example of the classic trope of what revenge can do to the person that seeks it out. No matter how right it feels, or how understandable it is, Tozen lost himself to his vengeance. So he got corrupted by it, and became something unrecognizable. And now Komamura, despite seeing what happened to his friend, has been put into a similar position and goes down a similar path. Like Tozen, he sought more power in the name of getting revenge for someone he loved and lost. And like Tozen, the retribution seems justified in some ways. Komamura wants to avenge someone he respected and cared for. At face value, that seems like a perfectly reasonable response to someone he loved getting killed. We saw a glimpse of how much that loss was really hurting him after it happened, and it's driven him to this point. It's very understandable, yes, but revenge, as in many stories, is not going to bring real peace to the person that wants it. It's going to be poisonous, it's going to infect them, it's going to make things worse, and that's clearly what's being displayed here. And a tragic part of this is that Komamura saw this happen to Tozen firsthand. He saw how the need for payback completely changed his friend into something he no longer recognized. He knows better, but this isn't about clear thought or logic. Wrath isn't sensible. It doesn't leave room for clear thought. He becomes blinded by his desire to go after Yamabaha, and he pays a heavy price for that mistake. And it's becoming very clear, time and time again, that Tite Kubo has a very clear perspective on how he feels about revenge. It seems in his mind, and within this story, revenge never ends well for the one trying to carry it out. I went back and I looked at anyone I could think of that was seeking revenge in the series, and a clear pattern starts to emerge. The biggest example is Tozen, for the reasons I just talked about, and he becomes the warning that Komamura should have heeded. He and Komamura have turned out to have very parallel journeys in some respects, but another big one when it comes to vengeance was Gin. He seemingly betrayed everyone in his life for the sake of getting close to Aizen so that he could someday kill him after Aizen took a part of Rankiku's soul. In some ways, what Gin did can be seen as heroic or even romantic, but from how Kubo ended his story, his need for revenge ended with him failing. he's not able to kill Aizen. His former comrades, I think, still believe he's a traitor. He can't get Rangiku's soul back, he can't be with her, and he dies. It's a very sad end after everything he gave up because he wanted to kill Aizen. It all goes wrong for him, even if he had noble intentions to begin with. He throws away everything for it, and it's all for nothing. And even to a lesser extent, there's Kai and Shiba trying to avenge his wife, going after the hollow that killed her, and his need for vengeance led to him getting possessed by the hollow, killed by someone that he really cared about, and then had his body further desecrated by Eren Yarrow. So yeah, you see what I mean? Kubo makes sure that characters that seek retribution are punished for it. It's not gonna be a good outcome for you. You're not gonna get what you want. You're gonna become something that you didn't want to be. And it's just very clear that this is Bleach's stance on revenge. This isn't like Kill Bill. You're not gonna drive off into the sunset. You're gonna be irreparably changed if you go seeking revenge. This is also highlighted by characters that have good reason to seek revenge, but don't seem to give in to that urge, or don't have any desire to. The big one that comes to mind for me is Isshin. He is able to kill the Grand Fisher, the hollow that murdered his wife. So yeah, he avenges her, but it's not really painted that way. That part of it isn't really highlighted that much. He even points out that he never really had any ill will specifically toward the Grand Fisher, because from what we know now, that hollow wasn't the one really responsible for why Masaki died that day. The biggest question mark for me when it comes to this whole concept and Bleach's view of it is Uryu and Mayuri, because that's kind of a potentially ongoing thing still if we ever circle back to it, which I really hope we do. In their first fight, Uryu's attempt to avenge his grandfather and all of the Quincy that Mayuri tortured led to Uryu losing his powers seemingly permanently at the time. There was a price that had to be paid, but he's recovered since then, at least from that power loss. But I've always hoped for a rematch for them, but given Kubo's very clear stance on revenge as the story's gone on, maybe it wouldn't go the way that I would hope it would, and I could see that now. But yeah, because Komamura sought revenge, and because that's a big no-no in Bleach, as I've just pointed out, Komamura is transformed into a full beast, who apparently will be driven only by wrath and who won't be able to speak to anyone, and it's actually really horrifying to see someone as respectable as Komamura be stripped of all his humanity, transforming him into a full-blown wolf. His heart has been sacrificed, he has been punished for his narrow vision and his wrath. I wondered a lot about how his clan elder looks more like a beast than he did, so he probably went through this same transformation at some point, only he seems to have retained his ability to speak, whereas Komamura seemingly is losing his. So maybe this is a side effect of the elder devouring hearts, that this somehow staves off the curse, or he's consuming the humanity of the ones that gave it up to him. I don't know. All I can say is the image of a wolf laying next to a sword, of a warrior being transformed into an animal, next to the blade that he can no longer wield, is a devastating one, and really solidified what the cost of all of this was. Captain Komamura has given up everything in pursuit of vengeance, even if he didn't mean to. He's paid the price, and it's an absolutely crushing thing to see for a character like him. And who finds him like this? His lieutenant Iba. Iba's most defining thing for me has always been his shades, of course, but also the fact that he used to be a Squad 11 member before becoming Komamura's lieutenant, and thinking on it, I think that thematically ties in quite well to all of this. Squad 11 has a reputation for being these vicious, bloodthirsty, warmongering individuals obsessed with battle and strength. They are the type of people that would charge in headfirst for retribution, and I assume Iba may have been like that once, but now has found a more peaceful, stoic place beside Komamura, finding his captain like this, corrupted by his bloodlust and his thirst for revenge. Maybe Iba understands him and his desire because he has a similar duality of his own, and even proclaims that he's going to carry this wolf to Yuabaha to fight him. He wants Komamura to see this through. He doesn't want him just laying there, without any dignity and in defeat. He understands why he wanted this revenge, and he's gonna try to help him carry it out despite what it's cost, that he still wants to see it through. And I don't know if it's just because I'm a dog person, but it got me emotional seeing this wounded animal, really this wounded soldier, being lifted onto Iba's shoulders, being carried onward because he can no longer do it himself. It's just really touching and sweet, and I don't know if they'll succeed in going after Yuabaha like this. I doubt it, but I hope that Yuabaha gets mauled by a wolf, even just for a second. At this point, there's no going back, so I hope Komamura at least gets a little taste of the vengeance that he sacrificed everything for. It's a really tragic turn for Komamura's story, which was unexpected, but it really brings a whole new meaning to someone's heart being in the right place. These chapters close off with a very unsettling scene showing Bambietta after the fight. She's beaten down, she's injured, and her group of friends who haven't helped her at all show up to finally help her. But you immediately get the impression that the help they have in mind won't actually be helpful at all, and that Bambi is terrified of whatever they're about to do. I don't know if they're going to just like sacrifice her or devour her in some way. That was one of my first thoughts. I don't think it'll be like literal cannibalism, but we've seen that Quincy are capable of absorbing Reishi, so maybe they absorb her into their being or something. Maybe they're a collective. I don't know. Considering how awful of a person Bambi has shown herself to be over and over, maybe she's earned a horrible fate. Maybe these girls have been plotting vengeance against her this whole time. And if that's the case, this won't turn out well for them. Things are looking really bleak, and even victories are super costly, but we've been shown that we're gonna be getting reinforcements from the Soul King's palace soon. Ichigo says it'll all be fine. Let's hope he's right, and let's hope that he's not looking for revenge. As always, thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see what happens next. This was crazy and unexpected, but you know, if you want to see early reactions to what's going to be coming next, I do a manga read-along and anime reactions on my Patreon that are my first viewings of all of this and my first reactions before I, take the time to take these notes and make these videos. So if you want to see me at my most raw and sometimes unhinged, go to Patreon, check out my manga read-along and anime reactions to all of this. And until next time, I'll see you all later. Take care. Bye.